Okay, sorry. Okay, okay. My name is Sung Ho Kang. Here in Korea, Kang Sung Ho. Okay, family name first. On behalf of the History NGO Forum for Peace in East Asia and the Thursday Forum Steering Committee, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to the 138th Global Thursday Forum. Today's session focuses on a highly important and timely issue, democratic backsliding and its implications for regional peace in East Asia. In recent years, we have seen growing concerns about the weakening of democratic institutions, challenges to the rule of law, and constraints on civil liberties in various parts of the world. These developments are not only domestic matters, they also have broader implications for regional cooperation, security, and the international order. Understanding these trends is therefore essential for promoting peace, stability, and constructive dialogue in our region. We are deeply honored to welcome our distinguished speaker, Dr. Sandip Kumar Mishra, professor at the Center for East Asian Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University in India. His presentation, Democratic Backsliding in East Asia and Regional Peace, will offer valuable insights into these important issues. We are also pleased to have Professor Raymond Siriaco from the Philippines as today's moderator. With his experience as a peace and human rights advocate and international elections observer, he will guide our discussion in a thoughtful and balanced way. Thank you all for joining us today. With that, let me now invite Professor Siriaco to begin the session and introduce our speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sung Ho. Good evening, regular members and new guests who joined us, who just joined us. Let me briefly share a profile of Professor or Dr. Sandip Kumar Mishra. He's the professor at the Center for East Asian Studies, School of International Studies, Jawahar, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi, India. And he worked as an assistant professor at the Department of East Asian Studies, University of Delhi from 2004 to 2016. He is also honorary fellow at the Institute of Chinese Studies, ICS, Delhi, and a distinguished fellow at the Institute of Peace and Conflict Studies. He writes a monthly column named East Asia Compass at the IPCS website and another column to the Korea Times newspaper. He completed his master's degree in international relations from Jawaharlal Nehru University and obtained his master's, Phil, and PhD degrees from the same university. He studied Korean language in Korea in 2006 and 2010 at the Yonsei University and Sogang University. He's been a visiting fellow at the Sejong Institute in 2009 and 2016 and a distinguished visiting fellow in 2018. He has also been associated with various university and research institutes of Korea, such as Korea National Defense University, Northeast Asia History Foundation, Kim Dae-jung Presidential Library and Museum, Institute for Far East Studies, Kyungnam University, and Korean Institute for International Economic Policy. Dr. Mishra is also interested in two-track processes for peace and reconciliation between states and communities. He received the Daikyo Cultural Foundation's Eye-Level Educational Award in 2016 for bringing India and Korea close to each other through educational contributions. So, my fellow members and guests, let's welcome Dr. Sandip. You may unmute.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair, for giving a very generous introduction of mine. I think I have been studying about Korea for more than 2 decades, and I think it's my pleasure to be associated with History NGO Forum. Professor Kang had been our, you can say, leader who brought everyone together from different continents, different cultures, different political, you can say, milieu, different economic milieu. And last several years, I still remember this forum very active even during COVID-19 period. So people were talking about their experiences, they were sharing their anxieties, their fear, their consolations. So I think it has been a great effort by this group of people, and all of you basically have been part of this family. We have been really proud of. Basically, today I thought that I to speak about democratic backsliding, and there are, you must have heard about several books, several articles, several uh, works who talk about democratic backsliding in several countries, especially developing countries, and especially you can say newly democratized country. But actually, the topic became an issue of, you can say, attention when I think in 2018, two Harvard professors, they published a book. Earlier also there have been, like say long back, there's just something called Idea of Political Decay. Samuel P. Huntington, I think almost 40 years back, 50 years back, he came out with the idea that it's not that only political development happens and country they become more and more democratized and you can say more and more transparent, but he said that there are political decay also happens in several, you can say, so-called functioning democracy. So that happened quite long ago, but I think gradually we are having this understanding that across the globe, democracies are becoming more and more prominent, more and more numerous. And that's why I think the same Samuel Huntington, he came out with this idea that this is actually, he was talking about, I'm talking about 1990s. He said that this is the third wave of democracy. So there are waves of democracy he conceptualized. And basically, post 1991, there was a jubilant mood that is end of history. All the other ideology, they are basically, they have gone back in the background. And the only future is democracy. The recent basically issue is when two things actually people started talking about. Fareed Zakaria, a student of Samuel Huntington, basically he wrote a book in again late 1990s, and the title of the book was very interesting. He said that rise of illiberal democracy. So normally we consider that democracy means liberalism. So liberalism ideology, it produces, or rather it's had very, you can say, very consonant relationship with democracy. But he said that there are several countries where illiberal, so they are basically following some kind of structural and procedural things of democracy. But there are many countries which are value-wise, they are not democracy. He had also, he defined illiberal democracy in his own way. So that is one important point which he tried to indicate. And as I was talking about 2018 book by two Harvard professors, Stephen Levitesky and Daniel Giblat, they wrote a book called How Democracies Die. And this was also a very interesting book because this book was largely talking about American democracy, which we consider that is a vibrant democracy. And basically, he was talking about, in a way, the part of Trump administration, Trump 1.0 only. So 2018, the book was published. It means still Trump was in power, the first term. So I also thought that let's talk about democratic backsliding. And rather than taking failed cases, let's take so-called successful cases. And that's why I chose East Asia. East Asia, where Japan and South Korea are located, who are generally considered to be very high in this index. So I thought that let's look at East Asia and then connect it with regional peace order. So I'm going to share my slide. Just a minute.
There,
Can you
we can
see?
see it.
Yeah. So basically, I started studying about how to move forward. Just a minute. Okay. So just to define democratic backsliding, it is basically a state-led, often legal erosion of democratic institution norms and civil liberties, representing a gradual decline towards authoritarianism. So in a way, this democratic backsliding happens not by so-called non-state actors. It's basically the power which captures state, and they basically start uh, gradually eroding the democratic institution and processes, and they create lots of problems for civil liberty and human rights democracy in the country. And the second part is that unlike sudden military coup, most of the contemporary backslidings happen in a very, you can say, sometimes in very slow manner, and they are done by elected leaders who weaken the so-called checks and balances, which is quite synchronous with democratic institution. We know that there are at least three organs of government: judiciary, legislature, and executive. So what happened that executive, they start taking more important positions and they start basically managing all other institutions. So that's a very, and most of the time, uh, this is done through creating lots of multiple rules, manipulation of rules, and also taking help of media in that particular country. So what are the characteristics? You can see executive power grab, erosion of norms, legal manipulations, populist drarys, common strategy. So many things they do. And including the last three things we need to remember: electoral manipulation. Even the so-called election commissions or the bodies which conduct elections, they are being also uh, quite compromised in this process. So election commission, and then the media. Media is also quite, even the private media, state media, normally it praises any ruling government in most of the democracies also. But I think even private media, because of their business model, they are quite dependent on uh, government assistance as advertisement and other benefits, and that becomes difficult. And through them, the ruling party or the ruling government, they control media. And the third is basically, which also I would like to say, civil society. So this is also very interesting, which happens. I can give you example of some countries, including sometimes in India. What happens normally in a healthy democracy, if government of a day is doing something which is not acceptable to people. Suppose they are bringing a legislation, or they are not allowing some demonstration, protest, some opposition to a particular bill. So what happens? Normally, civil society comes to streets and they try to create a resistance force. And this is peaceful normally. So civil society, they come together, they write letters to media houses, they write letter to government, they write uh, column and editorials in newspapers. They gather at some places, at any public place, like in South Korea, Gwanghwamun. In India, we have something called Jantar Mantar. So all those important places, they gather together and peacefully they make speeches, they make their demand open. And through that, basically, in a way, civil society tries to control the non-democratic tendencies of state. So that happens in a healthy democracy. But unfortunately, what is seen in this so-called democratic backsliding, state also basically curate another group of civil society. So what happens that when state faces a challenge from one particular group of civil society, they basically bring the other group of civil society to contest that first group. So what happens that in a healthy democracy, the contests and basically negotiations which were supposed to happen between civil society and state is happening between two groups of civil society. And that becomes sometimes difficult to manage. Sometimes there are violence, including in India. I think that leads to, in a way, civil society fighting among themselves, and state is keeping a distance and able to control both the, you can say, groups. So my point is that all these characteristics are very interesting and very problematic, which are there when we look at the cases of democratic backsliding. Now, talking about general, I think these are some figures which I brought in. As of 2024, the world has more autocratic country than democracy. Like there was a survey, and 64% of respondents in 12 high-income nations, they said that they have low satisfaction with democracy. There's an institute called VDIM. They have also a report on democracy 2026, which came early this year. I think it reports that around 25% of the world's countries, they are experiencing democratic backsliding. International IDEA 2025 reports that talks about 2024. It say that ninth consecutive year, the most countries saw a democratic decline rather than improvement. Autocratization is not limited to developing nations. The 2026 VDM report I'm talking about, it talks that even Europe and North America contains 6 out of 10 new top-tier autocratized countries. So this is really very telling figures about freedom of the press has hit its lowest point in 50 years, with significant restriction, and 71 countries are categorized as having low performance in the rule of law. So this is some figures about. So actually figures are important, but all of us, we know that if we look at most of the important countries, we can see that in America, Republican Trump he has got some support base, and that's why he is doing things which are generally considered to be impossible. I think even say 4 or 5 years back. So my point is that you can see several other countries, including European countries, where I think right-wing strong leaders, they are getting more and more popularity, rather than the leaders who talk about democracy, human rights, environment, responsibility, peace. I think all these words have become less popular these days. Talking about institution, talking about norms, talking about reconciliation, talking about conflict. I think all these things are basically not fashionable, and that has directly linked with democratic backsliding in so many countries. So we can feel that in our interstate relations everywhere. Now, if we look at, say, Japan, South Korea, and China, I'm talking about East Asia. Actually, in East Asia, I haven't included Southeast Asia because that would need another, you can say, big presentation. And I was not having enough comfort. I'm not enough aware about Southeast Asian political situation. So I tried to avoid myself. So if you look at Japan, generally, Japan is 8th or 10th, you can say. I think I can give you. It's very interesting that you can see this is the IU Democracy Index 2023, and you can see that Japan is 16th in the world, so it's quite high. South Korea is also 22, so it's also quite high. If you include Taiwan, 10th, so I think we are talking about those countries which are generally considered to be healthy and vibrant dynamic democracy. But basically, I thought that why not try to look at these countries so that we can learn some lesson from less successful country. So when I look at lots of literature, uh, I think I see that Brookings Institution and Chatham House, they consider that Japan is a stable democracy. But in 2024, uh, and they in 2024 they upgraded from narrow to open uh, in like say Japanese ranking. But if you go to other institutes, for example, I think there's a Leiden Asia Institute. They in one of their report they said that lead up to 2020 Summer Olympics, Japan had been backsliding under Shinzo Abe due to increased government surveillance capability in the name of making Japan the safest in the world. It started in 2013 through the creation of Japan's National Security Council and Counterterrorism Unit. The enactment of state secrecy law in 2014, an anti-conspiracy bill in 2017. It basically further got augmented. These laws were passed without accountability and oversight and only surveilled the Japanese population with lack of transparency. Uh, Even though because of COVID-19, 2020 Summer Olympics in Japan, it got postponed. But these policies, they did not change. The Security Coordination Center, which was established in May 2020 as a watchdog for government surveillance, shut down due to the postponement of Olympic, but the like the oversight they kept actually working on. Actually, this is also in a way connected to US-Japan relations. This is also reported by scholars and said by scholars that we can see that in supporting United States, sometimes it seems that Japan is not being enough, giving enough regard to human rights and democracy. For example, if you take Myanmar, there are allegations on Japan that they haven't not been actually talking much about, say, Rohingya Muslims. They are not talking much about 2021 military coup in Myanmar. So, and like the Suga and Kishida administration, basically they also followed Shinzo Abe, and it seems that the democratic responsibility of a country like Japan had not been enough, you can say, pursued. Um, there were reports that when Shinzo Abe was in power, he or say his directly and indirectly, they tried to influence media houses. For example, when Fukushima accident happened, it was reported that media is not allowed to write everything, and I think there was slightly lack of transparency, and because of that, actually, in 2016, Press Freedom Index, Japan was basically it went up to 72nd rank. So I think it's very. So I think you know that. So my point is that Japan, which is generally considered to be a successful case of democracy, when I look at you can say, look at the political happening in Japan, I realize that I think Japan is also not a case where democracy is getting strengthened. Rather, it's a place where there are lots of problems which could be identified in their practicing of democracy. Um, I think other people like I can keep talking about that, but I think I'm saying that many people say that forget about other things. The way a particular ideology, and that ideology of nationalism, this ideology of strong leadership, this ideology of basically being uncompromising uh, in most of the disputes, be it domestic disputes or maybe external disputes. All these are basically part of democratic backsliding. rule of one party is also in a way not a sign of good democracy. Why I'm saying, because uh, uh, actually there was a Freedom House. They had a very interesting definition that how to define that a country is democracy or not. So there could be many reasons. There could be many characteristics of a vibrant, good democracy. But they took one very interesting factor. They said that, look, in democracy, periodic elections should happen. Everybody should be allowed, like all adult eligible people, they should be allowed to participate in election process. Um, Election commission and the process would be free and fair. But actually, they said you will give those country more marks if the opposition party, they have also chance to come to government. So democracy doesn't mean that the same party continuously winning elections for many years. It means that even if the structure of democracy and process of democracies are followed, but somehow the spirit of democracy, where people are basically negotiating about their interests, and where different political formations, they are coming to power at different places. So I think this is the case of Japan. In case required, I will talk later. If you look at South Korea, again, you can see that, especially you can see that post 1987 in South Korea, a democratic strengthening started happening. Institution processes, they got important. They become and Korea became much more a vibrant democracy. But especially people say that from Lee Myung Park period, that is basically 2007-8, because 2007 elections happened. 2008 he came to power, and the next president also Park Geun-hye. You see that there are lots of, you can say, non-democratic activities of state in those days, especially surveillance, controlling media, and I think lots of cases of corruption and bribery happened. And we know that 2018 Lee was arrested. 2016, 17, I think Park Geun-hye was also got arrested. She was impeached also. But fortunately, during Moon Jae-in government, there was some, you can say, positive movements. And you look at the all the indicators of South Korean democracies, they were doing well. But there were some allegations on Moon Jae-in government also, that they like say the government is basically intimidating opposition forces, and they are basically trying to create monopoly in administration. They are not allowing professors and other media houses to express their view. And most importantly, I don't know how many of you agree, but actually during Corona first phase, COVID-19 first phase, I think Korea was on the one side projected as the successful case of how to control and how to manage COVID-19 spread, because of its basically track, treat, and something more. I think track on something. So basically, but Korea was also, that time Moon Jae-in was in power. That time Korea was also criticized because basically they were putting everyone on surveillance. The state was basically looking at you all the time, 24 hours, your movements, your everything. In case in question answer is required, I will explain it. So I think Moon Jae-in also, though it was relatively better faith than Lee Myung Park and Park Geun-hye, uh, it was not perfect. There were some problems in that part of. Now, the next president who came to power, he had, I don't know, he did not have enough experience of working in democratic politics, and basically he created lots of problem for democratic institution in Korea. I think on most of the issues, his opinions were very conservative. He had less regard for institution and processes, and that basically led to the way he, December 2024, I think he declared emergency. Suddenly he declared emergency, and finally that led to his impeachment. So my point is that South Korea also, you can see that there are lots of challenges, and there are lots of, you can say, yeah, fortunately, I think the current president, Lee Jae-myung, He is considered to be a democratic leader, but there are again because actually the ruling party in South Korea, they have very substantial majority in the National Assembly also. So many people say that he had been also less tolerant to opposition voices. But anyway, I think this is the case of. My point is that even in South Korea, as I mentioned about Japan, the thing is the picture is looking fine, because suppose I told you that South Korea also ranks high in democratic index. But my point is that still there are many things which could be improved, and there are problems in which I think you realize the state, rather than making those improvements, rather basically state is the reason for those problems. That is really, in a way, make it actually the. If you look at China, I don't want to say because when we say democratic backsliding, I don't consider China as a democratic country, and I'm not giving value judgment. I'm saying that they have a different political model where freedom is less important and equality is more important. If you go by the the basic idea of socialism, so equality is more important than freedom. So I think they should have different. So we should have a different criteria to evaluate China. So I'm thinking there also there are tendencies which are not. Suppose for many decades, China had peaceful, like post, I think, say, Mao period. You can see that there has been a 10 years each. There's a 10-year intervals and new leadership used to came in China. But you can see that after coming to Xi Jinping in 2012, 2013, he has prolonged his career indefinitely. Also, the way he has tried to marginalize and prosecute the people who are not in agreement with him on the name of corruption, removing corruption, and all those slogans. So I'm not saying that. And then you can see the way they dealt with COVID-19, how they passed national security law related to Hong Kong, how they have been basically you can say that the opposition and disagreement with government has become quite impossible in China, and it's more so than what it used to be. So that's my point, that backsliding. And again, so Chinese case is also not different. uh, I think again I can keep talking about China, but I'm not going to talk much because uh, we let's not have the same criteria for China. We can give some leeway to China that look, they are different system, but my point is that the democracy, in a sense, this is spirit that more and more people participation in decision making, the more and more space for people to disagree and peacefully allowed to say that they don't agree with a particular legislation. These are some basic, the more and more you can say respect for individual and communities' rights and their dignity. These are some fundamental things about democracy, democratic value. I think there is a backsliding everywhere, most of the countries. I can talk about Uyghur and Tibetans, what China had been doing. So I'll again skip it actually in case that's required. We can talk about in the question and answer. And basically, overall, I wanted to talk about North Korea, but then I decided not to because I don't consider in China, even though it's not a liberal democracy, I see lots of you can say lots of good things in China. We may disagree with China, but we need to recognize that in last say 20 years, China has been able to bring almost 7 to 800 million people out of hunger, out of poverty. This itself is a huge, you can say, achievement for China. You know, we talk about democracy, we talk about human rights, we can talk about political rights, and I think they are important. And that's what we are talking about, democratic backsliding. But we also need to be aware that if a country, because of its economic policies, because of its economic, you can say, oversight, they have been able to bring 700 million people out of poverty, that itself must be recognized. So I have, you can say, uh, but I did not want to include North Korea because I don't see anything very positive in North Korean system. Last 20, 30 years, which I can study, I don't think that they have anything to show. Uh, Either human rights, democratic rights, or say even prosperity and good life to their own people. So all those things are not there. So I don't consider that when we are talking about democracy, we should include North Korea. So I deliberately not basically included North Korea. Now, uh, my point is that democratic backsliding, when we are talking, we also need to include that this is ideological also. Like suppose even if, because the structure and processes which constitute so-called democracy, I think they come out of an ideology, that is liberalism. That is basically the importance of individual, the importance of basically coexistence, the importance of uh, allowing others to say what they want to say, even though we don't disagree with them. So all these ideas are basically fundamentals on which we create institutions and processes. And that's why you see that I personally feel that rise of conservatives, rise of intolerance, rise of ultranationalism, rise of revisionism, rise of militarism, rise of supremacists, I think all of them, all of these tendencies, they are basically, in a way, if they are becoming popular than before, I consider it's democratic backsliding. Uh, Sometimes, I don't know this is right or not, but I think I personally feel that is sometimes data, they don't capture the reality. As I told you, you can look at the ranking of Japan, suppose 16th rank. So definitely data and the structure and processes, they appears to be doing quite quite well actually. But my point is that within those data, there are lots of things which are happening, and those could be ideological, those could be more ideational. And that's why I think, for example, think about South Korea. South Korea is also considered to be a vibrant democracy, successful democracy. But think about last 10 years. I can see that how conservative forces are basically, especially, I used to have this template to understand South Korean politics, that normally the uh, younger generations, they are democratic, they support Democratic Party, they are uh, gender sensitive, they are you can say having more democratic value, whereas the older people, they are still living in past, and they are still having some affiliation, some kind of goodwill about authoritarian regime, especially of Park Chung-hee. But if you look at the last 10 years, especially the way Yoon Suk-yeol uh, got his vote, you will realize the younger male people in South Korea, actually there's a saying in South Korea, it's called Ide Nam. Like say all the male members who are in 20s, they have become conservative, and they have gone to the extent saying that there should not be a gender ministry in South Korea. And that's why actually Yoon Suk-yeol also, he tried to basically abolish this gender ministry in South Korea. I consider that basically this is also in a way democratic backsliding. Suppose the more and more people, I'm still, maybe this is my limitations, but I'm still not able to capture or understand what is the source of so much popularity of Japanese Prime Minister Takaichi. Because the Takaichi, I think she has to perform. She has to basically provide welfare and good governance to Japanese people. And I think, but somehow I think lots of popularity of Takaichi comes from basically making strong statements
The audio is breaking up, breaking down.
uh, strong
I
statements
don't know if
about
it's just me, but yeah.
Is it okay?
Yeah, would you
Okay,
repeat,
yeah, now it's
please?
back.
Yeah, from the Takaichi.
Okay.
From a time
Mention of
we
Takaichi.
lost you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Sorry for interruption. So my point is that this is also in a way, if those ideas are becoming more popular, more you can say acceptable, that is also in a way uh, a form of democratic backsliding. And that's why I'm basically talking that if these tendencies are happening in, say, East Asia, so what will be the future of Taiwan Strait? I'm talking about the big security issues in East Asia. Taiwan Strait conflict, or say Korean Peninsula tension, South China Sea, East China Sea dispute, Inner Mongolia, Tibet, Xinjiang, those disputes. So how we are going to deal? Because, more and more democratic backsliding, more and more removal of people, state becoming more and more authoritarian, more and more, you can say less accountable actors, the more and more they have tendency not to compromise. So my point is that this is going to have the democratic is going to have impact on. There is a theory in international relations, and this is called democratic peace theory. And they propound that generally democracies, they have less tendency to fight with each other. So if states are more and more democratized, I think peace between them is easier to achieve. Reconciliation between them is easier to achieve. It happens because there are can say they are stable. They want to have a can say they want to, whatever decision they take, that decision also basically comes out of uh, they're negotiating with all the people. So my point is that this is a very interesting uh, connections which this democracy, in case that is required, I will discuss it during the question answer. So my point is that democratic backsliding in all these East Asian countries, if it remains like this, and if it further worsens, it's going to have direct relationship with regional peace. And I think it had been propounded by several scholars, and I can talk about that. Now, the second thing which is related to this is basically that there's something called an idea of called connected peace. Idea of connected peace. Connected peace means that peace in India is going to be connected to peace in Pakistan, peace in Nepal, peace in Bangladesh. So our country, we are not basically staying in vacuum. We are living in a context, and if peace is there in between Japan and South Korea, it's possible that peace is going to be more in between South Korea and China. So my point is that peace in one country is related to, we can see it, sometimes we are not able to see it, but peace is a connected idea. It's not an idea. And similarly, my point is that if peace is connected idea, I think democracy is also connected idea. In the sense, you have democracy in one country, I think uh, it's going to impact democracy in other country. So my point is that if more and more uh, uh, democratic backsliding happens, it's going to negatively impact peace in the region. And the last and important point about this idea, I would also like to say there's an idea of just peace. So just peace says that if regional country in East Asia, they are having a peace, they're having some kind of stability, but this peace and stability is not based on justice. If one country is more powerful, is trying to dominate other country, because suppose many people may say that there was a peace in post 1905 East Asia when Japan was able to control Korea and part of China, part of even Taiwan, full Taiwan, I think. So if but that was not a just peace. That was an unjust peace. So my point is that if democratic backsliding happens, one is going to lead to conflicts, or other is going to uh, negatively impact possibility of resolving those conflicts. But at the same time, saying it's going to create a kind of, say, even if there's a peace and stability, that peace and stability is going to be unjust. So my point is that this is an interesting thing. So I think in this scenario, my point is that actually I basically wrote this conclusion kind of thing about my presentation in the light of last presentation which we had at our forum, because my point is that I'm ready to see democratic backslidings in East Asia, and even in democracy like Japan and South Korea and Taiwan. I'm ready to accept that there are lots of loopholes in their foreign policy. I'm ready to accept that they are not doing enough. They have been inconsistent for uh, 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 what could be done for the regional peace and order. But I am saying that when we are saying about that, when we are saying that Japan having so many problems, or say South Korea having so many problems, we need to be careful about that. When I'm saying that there's a backsliding of democracy in India, it doesn't mean I should say that North Korea is a better country than India, or North Korea is doing something good. So my point is that we study democratic backsliding because we want to strengthen democracy, human rights, peace, reconciliation, networking, connections, human rights, human dignity, uh, coexistence, compromise. All these ideas are very important, and that's why we have been. But it doesn't mean now. And at the same time, uh, for like say my basic idea is that when I'm saying that there is a democratic backsliding in Japan, I'm not saying that authoritarian systems are better than them, or rather I'm not comparing them with authoritarian system. Basically, I like these political systems, I like these political experiences. So that's what I'm saying, that there are some problems. The problems are probably enhancing, so let's try to uh, so my point is that we need to be aware about proportionality, and so my point is the democratic backsliding in East Asia is a very interesting. And I will end by a very famous quotation. I don't know, it's attributed to Thomas Jefferson, but some scholars say that he never said that. But anyway, the quotation became very popular because it says that eternal vigilance is price of liberty. So he said that if you want to remain democracy, democracy is not a final product. It's a process. You are not democratic or undemocratic. You are basically less democratic or more democratic. And that's why my point is that since it's a process, continuous process, I think we need to realize that we need to have constant vigil on our democracy, existing democracies. Try to strengthen them, try to make them more democracy. So, and because these are very much related for domestic as well as regional peace. So, and this domestic and regional peace is also through a democratic process. They could be more, what you say, they could be more uh, just. So I'll stop myself here, and I'll be happy to receive your comments and questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for a very uh, enlightening and thought-provoking presentation regarding uh, how we all experience and observe democracy happen. No? So I would like to hear how our audience, no, regular members, even guests, would like to may want to ask questions to Dr. Sandip. Yes, Sam, go ahead. I see you raising your hand.
Yes. Thank you. Yes. Uh, Thank you very much, Sandip. That's a very, very good presentation. I learned a lot, from your presentation, And if you have an article about this thing, I would like to read the article, because I think this is a very important issue facing us, not only, in in India or in East Asia, but also I think everywhere, everywhere with the global context that we have now, even in Southeast Asia and everywhere. And then I think I learned a lot from your presentation. Very good. I was looking also at that democracy index, to see where Malaysia stands, and Malaysia is described as a flawed democracy. So you have all kinds of terms, and we are being categorized as a flawed democracy. But I was listening to you, and then a lot of these ideological sentiments, they have given rise to conservatism, ultra nationalism, and all those things. I would argue that they are not really new. I would argue that they are already there. They are already there, and then they just need some triggering factors, to bring them up. Because you see, as you mentioned also, all of these leaders are basically democratically elected. And then, the people elected them into power, knowing that, these people have these kind of tendencies, including even, some supremacist tendencies. Even look at Trump, look at the US, and how he has won the election over there. So all this conservatism, ultranationalism, feeling of supremacy, they are already there, but either they have been suppressed by previous leaderships, or people are either afraid or too shy, to bring this forth, and they just need, a leader, or a trigger, or a driver, to move this forward, and to me that is troubling. To me, I feel that there is a problem, because all this while we thought that all these countries are democracy, people have better sense, people are respectful of each other and all those things, and then when given the opportunity, they show their true faces, and this is actually troubling. This is actually troubling. uh, and the leaders then, the leaders that have used these sentiments actually, have done it for I think for various reasons. One is because they know these feelings, these sentiments are already there, so they ride on this, to propel themselves, and in doing so they brought along all these people with them. And also as this is also as a reaction, reaction to the global context. And then you see one country doing it, and then some other countries see that, hey, this is something either we have to also do in our place, or to react, to these other countries. If one country become conservative and change the policies of that country to become ultra-national policies, then the neighboring countries, will have to react to it, to these things. And I see, this also as a reaction, as a reaction. So again, all these are very troubling. We are not, the kind people that we think we are, because there are, that elements in there. It's like going back to the social contract theory. When you talk about Hobbes and Locke and the nature of man, in natural surrounding, whether we are evil or for good. I think there is more evil than good in a lot of people these days, as proven by what we have. So what can be done? What can be done? I think we can acknowledge the issues, but I would like also to listen more about what can be done in order to overcome, all these things, taking into account that they are already there. And you mentioned about the role of CSO and NGO, civil society organization. I think yeah, I think they can present, they can be like, to counter these sentiments. And then we need to invest more in things like, peace education and all those things. When we have this problem, we need to figure out that the issues not only are resolved now, but for the future, what do we do in the long term? So we need to become more aggressive in addressing and introducing like a culture of peace, especially to the young people. So in the long term, in the long run, we will have a different set of thinking, and then we just need to go back and respect the rule of law, because I think at the international level, I think all the mechanisms, the rule of law are being set aside. We need to go back to the basic rule of law. And I like you mentioned about just peace. Malcolm X said that no, there should be no peace without justice, and that is something that we can work on. Working on not only just peace but sustainable, positive peace, and all those things. Lastly, my last comment, in regards to what can be done, do you feel there is a need? I mean, we are countering all these things using, civil society organizations and, and the more peaceful movements. But just for discussion, how about some kind of revolution? Uh, Removing all these leaders that they have bring so much problem to the world. Uh, when I say revolution, Pak Rezlan is already looking at me. Oh, here goes. He's a revolutionary guy. But it can be peaceful revolution. A revolution does not need to be aggressive or unpeaceful or war, but it can be peaceful revolution, in the sense that revolution then gathers a lot of us, like-minded people with more peaceful way of thinking, to remove, the present, system, that is oppressing, the whole world. Putting our faith into not only civil society organization, but also into political parties, for example, that have more peaceful agendas, electing people with more peaceful agendas to become our next leaders, and not continuing, with those that have tendencies for authoritarianism. No more, I'm sorry to say, no more Duterte in the future for the Philippines, for example. Sorry, Raymond. Uh,
Okay, it's okay. Thank you, Sam. Thank you.
and then the
Okay.
other countries as well. We already identify, who are the potential authoritarian leaders in the future, but we still
Yeah.
keep electing them. Why are we doing that? So we need some kind of revolution, of at least of mindset, for people to note that, for the good of all of us, we need peaceful leaders that can work with each other, and that can respect the rule of law, that can respect, the various government agencies and all those
Okay.
things. And okay, so I will stop there. And again,
Okay, thank you, Sam.
thank you very much, and I look forward to discussion on these things.
Okay. So maybe before we go to Ambassador Reslan, Sandip, you may want to respond to
Yeah,
to
I think
Sam's comment.
I think I largely agree with what he said. I think he's very insightful, and he's quite right when he's saying that lots of, like in India, sometimes people complain about our Prime Minister Narendra Modi being slightly high-handed. So many Indians, they say that no, he's required when he has to deal with, like, if we are having Trump in America, Xi Jinping in China, we need a Modi in India. So that kind of things are still there. It's there. So I agree with that.
Yeah.
About actually, I would like to draw your attention about one thing. What happened that for a very long period of time, gradually we forgot that democracy is not only a form of government. Actually, democracy is basically an idea, is a value system. And like suppose when you in suppose if even if we are democratic, we are talking about separation of power, legislature, executive, judiciary, independent media, good election
Yeah.
commission, free and fair election. But what about family? If we are alone deciding our family matters, not allowing our wife, our children to democratically, and how much we accept their dignity of
Yeah.
life. So poor people, how much we, so I think in the process of democratic journey, I think last 300 years or something, somehow I think we forgot that is a is not only a form of government. Form of government is basically manifestation,
Okay.
the value. And my point, what I'm trying to emphasize,
Yeah.
that I remember when Americans, they they had their military expedition in Iraq. One of the professors in JNU, he asked a Brookings Institute person that 70% world population, they are against this American intervention. Why are you doing it? You are a democratic country. He said that, look, democracy means accepting opinion of our American people, not about what Philippines is thinking about, what India is thinking about. So you basically fracture democracy. You basically remove democracy from its foundation. So my point is that yes, peace education is important, and I think if we are, I don't know about how to do. I think civil society education is the right way. Revolution in the sense that sudden, like some big change is required right now. Some big mobilization coming together is required. But he also, I think, Jam also mentioned that we are not talking about any violent protests or something, but basically this erosion, the form of government becoming separate from values, the foundational idea. I think if we can bring foundational ideas again at the center through education, maybe the structures and process, they are going to get modified. That's my sense.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sandip. That's why they say it's not just what's happening in the White House or the Blue House, but it's what's happening in our house. No? So the idea of democracy as an ideal, because we still have to look for a perfect model that we could all pattern after. No to democracy or no to authoritarian leadership are the same.
True.
And that's why we're all seeking for a model we could all learn from, deepen our appreciation, and perhaps see a way forward rather than backward. So yeah, so Ambassador Reslan, I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Sandip Mishra, for your excellent presentation. Perhaps what I would like to inject into this discussion is the role of social media and also AI. Why I put this focus on social media is because, as far as in Indonesia is concerned, there are, of course, criticism that is pointing to the fact that there are indications of backsliding also in democracy in Indonesia. But as far as if we want to gauge the views of the people, I think here we can perhaps categorize it as the views of the older generation and young generation. I think we live in a world where the source of information and the source of how to know the indicators of what the young people are saying. As far as Indonesia is concerned, in the social media, if young people are not reading anymore mainstream media. Mainstream media is not their choice. Their choice is certain particular media, and they're in their world. It is really free. It is really criticism is really you can feel.
Yeah.
But the thing is, how would it translate later on into election?
Yeah.
Whether the voice of the young people who are very idealistic, very critical, very important, it is still a question whether they can really change the situation within the election. Especially in our in the cases of case of certain how do I say developing countries, the bulk of those who have the right to vote in terms of education, in terms of economic earnings are still very low, and they are the one that depends very much on the government subsidies and so on. But I do have, even though now the time is I mean, we can say that we have many problems, but I do still have hope with the young generation. The only thing is that they need to be the number should be enough to change within the democratic system of every 5 years in certain. So I really want to hear your comments on the role of media, especially social media and the AI. Thank you.
Okay. Social media and AI, because there's so much social influencers and whether it's impacting on democracy now. Yeah. Sandip?
Yeah, I think I also think about the role of social media, especially because social media is a much more democratized media in a way. So lots of positives also could be, because when states, they try not certain news to reach to people, still this social media, they provide a platform through which they can share. What happened in, say, Nepal, younger generation, the way they basically articulated, a very young prime minister is there in Nepal, and he's basically doing lots of good, lots of some inexperienced thing also. So that's important. But the problem that probably how to say, it's democratized, but it's the responsibilities are not basically ensured. So what happened that lots of fake news, lots of misinformation, lots of trolling, lots of, you can say, all those tendencies which we sometimes show in our private life. For example, some loose talk with my friend. I think that's getting normalized at a very formal level. So I think it has both good and bad impact in democratic process. But I think I'm also hopeful that basically, because right now it seems that the younger generation, they are unhappy with political system, political, you can say, ecosystem. But till now they don't have any, you can say, alternate idea. So probably they know what is wrong in our system, but probably they still has to find out how it's going to be replaced by what kind of alternate. So I'm hopeful, but I think uh, I think my at least the minimum thing which I keep talking to my friends also, in social media, on social media also, all the accounts must be opened with real name, real address, real phone number,
That's right.
so that whatever we see, you are free to say whatever you want to say, but you must be ready to accept responsibility of a statement. That's my
Correct. So that's the challenge because of the reality of troll and the virtual realities that sometimes they can really create videos that are not the real person, so the credibility becomes questionable, and that who gets it in their wall also is selective. So you can also select which audience actually are fed the same types of information. So there's no uh, again, there's no guarantee of a good democracy there. No? I see a raised hand from one of our guests. Estevao, would you like to share your thoughts before we go to Mikio? Estevao raised his hand first. Please
Yes,
unmute.
yes. Okay, thank you, Professor. Here is my once again evening to my professors, but I do not know your name properly. And then I go to my commentary about democracy. It is related to my country because our system policy in Timor-Leste is a Republic Democratic of Timor-Leste. Then our system is semi-presidential. About democracy is Timor-Leste because we all know that as a new member of ASEAN, that's and in our country is democracy. Everybody knows that democracy, but the sustainable of democracy is still up and down. That's why we are focused on the real what is the real democracy. Even our leaders in Timor-Leste always against about the democracy, but they are talking about what is the political of democracy and what is the justice, the real justice of democracy, because our law in Timor-Leste is we just know it recognize the democracy, but the leader is always against this. As a young people, young youth in Timor-Leste, in my country, that well know that before the Indonesian, we all know that our history of Timor-Leste, that the post-conflict, we just liberate our country in 2002. That's why as a new country, as you know, that as a young country. That's why our leaders and our civil society always focus of democracy. Why they are talking about why is Indonesian military against invade and colonialisms our country. The threat there it kills many peoples in Timor-Leste. Just like that, 3 million people are dead. That's why, and now even Japan also before our ancestor, they are talking about human rights. They're always us is the disaster for justice from the Japan before. Now even our government always bring the political of human rights to ask the real justice that before the Japanese military and Portuguese military and also Indonesian military that always invade our country. Now is just say that it is we just say that nothing to get the real justice in our country, because they are always the make it a power of leader, and also I do not know it clearly, and then later we will share it again because still undemocracy in our country. Even the young youth leader do not know the real of justice and the real of the human rights in our country. And now is the Indonesian as a Timor-Leste and Indonesia, and even Japan, Korea, and also any other countries, the law is they cooperated each other, but they are not focused the real of human rights in Timor-Leste. My now that's my sort understanding about sharing of the democracy based on human rights in my country, and also I have simple questions uh, about the human rights based on democracy. We all know that the international law is basic of the human rights. Always say that the human rights for everyone, and no one is behind the law, and no one is uh, put put in people the right place and the right man. That's why we always focus about that. But the top leader in international always against the human rights, and it means they against the international law, just like Papua, and also Kudeta Myanmar. They always ask the their justice because of the democracy, because there's some nation against invade their country, their humanity, and kill many people there. That's why for me, even my knowledge and my ability, my experience, still the lower or the still is not enough for you to understand. But here is the base of my understanding or my experience that I have learned from my teacher and my professor, and as a youth person, a youth people, that we are learning together about the democracy and also about the human rights. So I want to know what is the real justice in international law, because based of democracy. So my professors do have some experience about it. You can share it for me, even we are here together. And also my last question for my professor, that just now that you share about the from Japan, then you can I have sent my email by inbox message. That's why you have to send the material, the lesson that just now you presented here.
Okay.
You can take it again.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I'm so sorry I take it long time, but
That's okay.
no.
Thank you for sharing your perspective, no, from Timor-Leste. Dr. Sandip, you'd like to respond?
I think he made very important point, and I think I agree with him. I slight disagreement, or rather slight, you can say, modification. Actually, human rights, it comes not out of international law. Basically, it comes out, the international law itself comes out of idea that all human beings, rich, poor, whatever race they are from, whatever country they are from, all of them, they are having same dignity. They have same, they are equal. They deserve certain fundamental rights, certain, you can say, natural right. So if we agree with this idea, then only you can frame this international law. Unfortunately, what happens that the uh, the the countries which are basically implementing those international law, their behavior appears to be that they are taking help of international law, but trying to pursue their national interests. So it's very, you can say, problematic the way they interpret, the way they implement international law. So I fully agree with this idea. And for that, I think my thing is that, yes, suppose America, suppose Japan in colonial period, I agree that they disregarded international law. They colonized other countries. They exploited other countries like America and Russia and say other country, big country. They try to but my basic submission is that before pointing, or rather we point at our finger to them, but at the same time, if we are also like, less, America is not respecting human rights, not twisting international law. But what about Sandip Mishra? I am not giving enough dignity to my fellow neighbor, not somebody who disagrees with me. So I'm against American human right violation, but I'm not aware about my uh, behavior with fellow human beings who is supposed Muslim in India, or say suppose who is having different opinion than me in India, comes from different party, or somebody who comes from different class in India, poor person. So if we are not, so my point is that those ideas, those fundamental ideas of human right, democracy, through education, if we propagate them, I think it could be having much more, you can say, foundational basis, and they will put pressure on these countries not to violate international law. So that's my submission.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sandip. Yeah, let's go to Mikio. Mikio,
Yes,
kindly unmute.
I think, can you hear me? Can you
Yeah,
hear?
we can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay, I think
We are
the
here. We are here.
Fitri, Lestari raised a hand earlier than me. So,
yeah.
so the
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't see.
Fitri
Okay.
first.
yeah.
Okay.
It's
Okay, go
Okay,
ahead.
okay.
please.
Okay,
Go
thank you
ahead.
everyone. Thank you, Professor Sandip, for your outstanding presentation. And I'm Fitri from Indonesia. And firstly, the situation is indeed that we agree that democratic backsliding is happening. It's not only in East Asia, but also particularly in Indonesia. And I would like to share that the situation is even facing the vulnerability. I mean, because in the Augustus until September 2026 last year, so the youth peoples in Indonesia, in many cities here, not only in Java, but also in Sumatra, Kalimantan, they had been protesting the authoritarian regime. But then at least 700 individuals became the victims and they were arrested. And some of them even become the political prisoners. But I believe that there is a hope. I mean, because we have a youth movement, like you guys mentioned in the Nepal or in the other countries, that in Indonesia also we have a youth movement that needs to be maintained. In Indonesia, because Mr. Rezran Jenny mentioned that it will be, I mean, the youth people need to more education so that the civil society organization has roles to how to provide the human rights and political education and awareness to youth people to like uh the the professor from the Malaysia or the Philippines mentioned that there will be maybe revolution. I mean, in Indonesia, we had a kind of reformation that led by youth movement in 1998. So I think we need to explore like how to then building and strengthening the youth movement not only in the Southeast Asia but maybe across borders. And the last that I want to share is there is because of it is a authoritarian and oligarchy. They have been building the Professor Sandip mentioned the legal manipulation in Indonesia. We have like military law. We have in electronic information transaction law, that weaponized law that the authoritarian regime used to intimidate, to arrest, to criminalize the human rights defender. But I believe because this is global level that we have been discussing, I think we have like mobilize the youth across borders to building the democracy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Fitri. Maybe you want to respond, Sandip, before we go to Mikio.
I think I largely agree, nothing to respond. I think
Okay.
she made a very important point. That's
Thank you. Thank you, Fitri. Yes, Mikio, now you can unmute.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sandip, for your very thought-provoking presentation. So I was thinking many things while listening to your presentation. I think I want to raise maybe two issues. Maybe first is maybe the democracy, yeah? So the nature of democracy, definition of democracy. And another one is Japan's situation, actually, recent situation. And maybe Japanese way of receding democracy, maybe. Yeah. Okay, first one, basic idea of democracy. Yeah? So democracy, basically, I think you are more largely talking about the liberal democracy, right? Liberal democracy. Yeah? This one is minority group, and starting with minority group, then they expand and circulate and spread their own idea, maybe something new in the beginning, then eventually, and many people accept that idea, right? Then and the minority become majority. Then they will get political power or something. This is the liberal democracy. But of course, and as you know, so there's a different kind of democracy, yeah? And in the past, there was a people's democracy, right? People democracy, mostly under the socialist and the communist party, right? And the people democracy. So this one is the vanguard party, like a communist party, claim that and the party represent interest of the people in general. Yeah? This is people's democracy. And then recently, China is now advocating the whole process, people's democracy, yeah? whole process, people's democracy. So this is, I think, the development of the traditional people's democracy. So this one, there are still several ways, yeah, for the people to participate in the decision-making process. Yeah? So I think also we may also consider, and this one, yeah, and the recent form is the whole process people's democracy, and this one is worth our studying actually, and also democracy these days, because the Western countries and the US and European countries. Maybe I'm sorry to say I'm basically the anti-American, and so how do you say U.S. Of course, yeah, not only now but for a long time, and maybe since the end of the Cold War, and the U.S. expand the idea of human rights, democracy, and free market, right? And these three elements, yeah, a set of three things: human rights, democracy, and market economy, free market, right? So now I feel increasingly these things are kind of becoming the instrument to attack the so-called undemocratic countries, or even maybe instrument to maintain, and it's kind of the world domination, yeah. So increasingly, I'm very much cautious about the usage of the democracy. Yeah? So I recently I feel maybe better criteria to assess the societies, maybe the humanity, and just a small proposal, humanity. How about adopting the humanity as the criteria to assess a society and whether our society is getting better or not? And then, of course, what is the humanity? And in my definition, humanity consists of love and wisdom. Yeah? Love and wisdom. That is a humanity. So these things include many good qualities, actually. And also this can be reflected in politics. But I will not go into detail this topic. Yeah? I want to go to the Japan. So Japan and maybe backsliding. Democratic backsliding of Japan. As I see it, I think that this tendency in Japan, now Japan is become increasingly nationalistic, yeah, compared with the previous time, very nationalistic. In my view, this nationalism is a kind of the, how they say, reaction to the so-called globalism. This group, and especially during the COVID-19 pandemic period, and WHO come up with and play the important role to cope with the COVID-19. And then WHO come up with, of course, and certain health issue, right? Health, including the spread of the vaccination, right? And all these things. Japan had a certain part of Japan had a very strong, how do they say, suspicion about what WHO is doing. Yeah? And according to them, WHO is spreading its own version of health, and one world, one health. So this is how do they say, smell like the totalitarian. One world, one health. Although the world is so so variety, right? Variety about this WHO, and they come up with this idea, and then so some people in Japan and feel this one is another way of totalitarian world domination, yeah, and of course, and globalism also always come with the neoliberalism, yeah, and of course maybe you know already the pros and cons of neoliberalism, including the competition, strong competition, and winners and losers, and increasing gap between the rich and the poor, right? So also certain quota in Japan has very strong neoliberalism. Yeah? So because of this, and I think now this anti-globalism, anti-neoliberalism and anti-totalitarianism not become very strong. Then the many Japanese people are now going to nationalism, yeah, nationalism to counter this trend, nationalism. Of course, nationalism emphasize the traditional values and norms and customs, right? And this one sometimes not align with the tenets of the so-called democracy and maybe liberal democracy. So there's a too strong trend in Japan, and now recently nationalism is strong. For me, partly I also sympathize with nationalism, yeah, and in terms of anti-totalitarianism and all things. But I definitely don't subscribe to nationalism, yeah? And this is very exclusive, right? So my own idea is so-called open nativism. Open nativism. Nativism is respect for the local culture, yeah? Local culture way of life. But this one does not combine with the statism, nationalism. Although natives have very negative implication because also exclusive, right? And often they don't easily welcome the newcomers from outside, right? But this is my idea is open nativism. As long as the newcomers, those people who arrive to our community, I don't want to use the country, and country is too abstract. Then this one easily become nationalism, yeah. But anyway, small communities. And Japanese archipelago has a small community reflecting the variety of the natural environment. Yeah? So as long as the newcomers respect and accept the local way of life, community, yeah? Then to that degree, newcomers should be accepted. Yeah? So this one I would call it open nativism. But I want to expand this idea, but still that's very strong. And the confrontation between nationalism and globalism. Takaichi, I think, came into power, riding on this new wave. Yeah? And also Takaichi she had a very good social media strategy. And then somehow she has been successful to establish a very positive image of herself, this one. And this one maybe because her predecessor, yeah? And Ishiba and Kishida, their performance was considered very poor. Yeah? Then many people are so much disappointed with her predecessor. Then people expect Takaichi can do something new. So that I think this is the main reason. But what Takaichi is doing is that, in my view, totally against Japanese people. And this one. And then, this is a big problem. And so recently she wanted to send the self-defense force to Strait of Hormuz. Yeah? But her aide forcefully stopped her, yeah, to do it. Yeah? Yeah, and so crazy. Yeah? And now it looks like Takaichi is isolated within her own cabinet. So hopefully, and she will not remain in that position for long now. So anyway, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mikio. So certainly, every experience is unique, and we can all learn from that. And we're all seeking for a model I remember, again, Zam was saying revolution. We've had two revolution. First to kick out a dictator, the other one kick out a popularly elected president. So again, we have to learn from each other's experience, a deeper understanding. And I think, as pointed out earlier, you have to go deep down to the individual experience, what's happening not just in the White House, but in our own house, in how we deal with fellow human beings. That's why the aspect of human rights also came up. I think Esteban wanted to say something else. Yeah, please, you raise your hand from Timor.
Okay. Thank you once again. Thank you, Mr. Professor. And I want to ask a simple question for Mr. Professor Sandip. Just now you presented, and then just now you showed some case about the China. Just now you said the system is authoritarian,
Mhm.
and that their system is socialism. But now, but then they in the it's only theory, but practice we just say that they are capitalism. That's why they are cover all the country, all the war in this country. That's why they are you just say that the international commercialism, the commercialist. That's
Mhm.
based on my opinion, based on my ideas, based on my observation. That's why, because in our country, all Chinese in our country, their focus of the explore or invest in our country. That's why we have to. That's
Yeah.
in my country because we are as Asian people. And then there, how do you know? Do we know about the system, the real system of China? Because that we say that just now, Mister said that revolution, their popularity, and also the kick out. That's how can you make it just like I want to know the system of China because they are they say that they are that capitalism or they are socialism systems. They would the try have to know is it as a simple question, but that's the big problem in the in my country. That's my question. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm so
Thank you.
sorry.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Esteban. Yeah. Before we go to Sungho, maybe Sandip, you'd like to respond.
Yeah, I think the last question which my friend from East Timor mentioned, I think about China again, all these categories that countries are socialist country, countries are democratic country, all these labels are basically to understand that in which category we can fit a country into. But these like actual practices of all the country is much more mixed. So suppose
Mhm.
if you look at Scandinavian country, they appear more socialist than even China. Okay. So my point is that rather than basically, so I'm agreeing with your saying China is they have a commercialism, so they go to every country and they want to do trade. So my point is that rather than branding a country like China or say India or Russia or America as this country or that country, my point is that look, ultimately everywhere human beings are living, they are having their own way to organize their politics and economy. Okay, we need to have dialogue with them. We need to understand that those human beings are all human beings. We are may have different opinion about their political order, their economic organization, but let's be engaged with them. And if there are some problem area, we can identify, we can tell them that look, open communication. I'm in disagreement with all those systems who don't allow this open communication to happen. So I don't have any per se problem with Chinese system. My problem is if there is any problem which I identify or Chinese citizen identify, they are not allowed to say so. So that's the problem. So my problem is not with the system per se. You can have your own system. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that liberal democracy is the only system which is valid, There could be other systems also who could be equally, as he was talking about, as human, like Professor Mikio was talking about humanity. If they are propagating love and wisdom, that could be acceptable to me. The only thing that if I disagree with them, allow me to communicate with you. And if don't enforce anything, don't exploit poor people, don't those basic things. So I think one. Now coming to Professor Mikio, I think in my opinion, yes, liberal democracy is one form of democracy in one way looking at. But if I look at all the other forms of democracies, which are, suppose there was a time when South Korea, Park Chung-hee, he came to power, and he did not say that he's running a authoritarian government. He said that I am having a guided democracy. In Ayub Khan, like Pakistan also, Ayub Khan, he gave this like democracy from above. They say that the goal of democracy we are going to follow, but the methods and instruments are going to be authoritarian. So my point is that my only because suppose I appreciate certain policies and certain achievements of China, but at the same time I'm skeptical about the method. Because if you are not following the right method, if suppose one person, a group of person, a political party, they capture all power, all decision making, I think the collective wisdom is not being enough consulted. So I have problem with that idea. Otherwise, I'm okay with all kinds of democracy. And I feel that in practice, most of the alternates of so-called liberal democracy, they are basically some way basically an effort to camouflage non-democratic element and basically rule of one party or one individual. So I have disagreement with that only. Otherwise, I agree that democracy could have different thing. Now, the last thing, I think I fully agree what Professor Mikio said, that what happened that with globalization, our identities have become, our basic identities have become again an issue on which we go back to. So probably when on the one hand globalization is happening, lots of leveling is happening, I think our distinct national and other communitarian identity, they are asserting themselves. I don't have any problem in that in a way. But my problem is that, look, you said one world, one health. I don't agree with that kind of idea. You also don't agree, I think. So basically, my point is that, look, we don't want unity in the world. Sorry. We don't want uniformity in the world. That every country should be same, all the religions should be same, all political systems should be same. We want unity in the world, that diverse units having different characteristics, different core competences, they can come together, work together, and be tolerant to each other. So that's message. So I agree with your second point that probably because of over globalization, there is a tendency, nationalist tendency in Japan. And you basically alternate suggested actually humanity. I will also recommend all of us to read very famous Indian scholar called Rabindranath Tagore. He got Nobel Peace Prize, and he has written some very good essay about nationalism and internationalism. And he said that if you like your mother, nothing bad in that. But if you dislike others' mother, this is bad. So if you like your own country, you want to make your country strong, nothing is bad in that. But if you try to create hurdles for other country, you are basically nasty to other country, unjust to other country, that's problematic. So if Japanese nationalism, so I think we agree on second point that you are calling it humanity. I can give another name, but largely I agree that this is the reason why China, like say Japan, is becoming the way it has been behaving. And I think it needs to modify, it needs to dilute its ultra-nationalist tendency and make a much more cooperative security kind of understanding of the world. Thank you.
Okay, I think it's really challenging, no, to find the right balance because every experience is unique, and all of these promises. I remember the rise of Duterte was saying he's going to be like Lee Kuan Yew, that we need the strong leaders. But again, by experience, we discover something else. So anyway, yeah, I bring this back to Sung Ho. Sung Ho, please unmute. Unmute.
Okay, before closing this discussion, I'd like to join and make one comment and one very simple question. I really, agree with Sandy, Professor Mishra, what he, in his presentation, he talked about the phenomena of the Korea, South Korea, and one thing as a leader of one civil society or NGO, my History NGO Forum for Peace in East Asia, uh, I feel myself, declining of civil society activities here in Korea. Okay, one big, this result is the budget is decreasing, has decreased a lot. Okay, there 10 years ago or even 20 years ago, the previous government, they put aside, budget for these, kinds of their subsidy. Okay, subsidizing civil societies. It means like people's participation in like what public and private partnership or some like policy making or something. But I wonder for some previous republics, particularly conservative leaders, they converted or they shifted all this budget to some different direction. So we are very concerned about it, really. And our activities are like declining or decreasing. Okay, this is one big issue. Uh, and in my organization, always my committee members, what we expected some change of this policy, and this is very important for us, okay, for our civil society. Of course, some organizations, some NGOs, what they are criticized for their some manipulation of their budget or something. But even though they are not perfect, still the Koreans, as a Korean, we are very proud of our, civil society movement. Okay, really, as you Sandy, knows. Okay, and one thing in his research, what I'd like to talk about the religions, the influence of the religions in my country, okay? Because Korea is different from like Philippines or even of course, Middle East countries or even the Indonesia. That we have like Christianity, okay? Christianity, particularly Protestant Christianity, really contribute to democratization in 1970s and 1980s. Maybe Sandy, about their contributions. But these days, we have big problems. The old some particularly Protestant, Christianity, and somewhat we call it Unification Church. Okay, in Japan, Unification Church, and one kind of sect. This is Korean name is Shincheonji. It's like what very controversial religious group, Church of Jesus or something. They are deeply involved in the, like politics, okay, particularly conservative party. And this is the big agenda, still is not, what investigated, not yet. So I think they made really very adverse effect, okay, adverse effect to our democracy. So I wonder, Sandy, in your research, what do you think of this factor, religious influence in our like democratic backsliding? Okay, so just I'd like to listen to your comment. Okay.
Yeah, I think about the first thing, decline of civil society, I think agree that is there. But because, what happened that I look at civil society uh, in vis-a-vis state, actually. So I feel that if state is sponsoring, state is funding civil society, is always going to be state dependent. And when state comes, which is trying to minimize democratic space, then I think civil societies are going to have difficult time. If civil society can get its sources from people rather than state, then I think it could be. So my point is that what History NGO Forum does, talking to young generation, reaching out to common people, basically having a study tour, educational tours, classes. So my point is that if uh, we can gain our energy from people, probably the state is not going to basically, because their funding is going to be, they should not be dependent on state funding alone. So that's one thing which comes to my mind. I don't know how it's going. And what happened that if you look at people, the problem is that as Ambassador Reverend Jenny mentioned, actually, very, very important point he made, like rise of social media. Rise of social media, many people say that earlier, when people were discontent, they used to go to make groups. They used to go to meet each other, one another, create a political idea, contest with that idea in political space. But nowadays, what happens that lots of people, when they agree on, they are disagree on any point, what they do, they tweet, they write on Facebook, and then they feel less done. So somehow it has diluted our, you can say, tendency to create networks, to meet people, to create contest. So that in democratic process we keep asserting our opinions and communicating with other opinions. So that's unfortunately not happening, and maybe that is related to weakening of civil society in different countries, including South Korea. Now coming to religion, I think religion also, I think again, I would you can say, when I look at like South Korea, I have been multiple times, and I go to many like Sinjanji and others, actually the Unification Church, Thongil Kyoe. I think I have attended many of those protests, and I saw common human being in all those old people, male, female, harabaji, like grandfather and grandmother. They are also, but I think they are less informed, they are brainwashed, they are, so I personally feel that rather than blaming religion, if religion would not have been there, there would have been another agency which is basically, so my, when I mentioned that constant vigil is the price of democracy, my mention was that we need to keep educating people, communicating our idea, reaching out, not having this idea that grandfather and grandmother who is a supporter of conservative political force is basically less human being than me. I would respect him, her individual dignity. I will communicate with them, maybe not today, maybe after a year, after 2 years. If I'm helping him or her, she's basically having love and good faith with me over the time. So my point is that in South Korean society, I don't blame only these conservative religious groups, basically. I blame the liberals who think that they are better human being. They have very, you can say, condescending view about these conservative supporters, and they feel that they cannot be communicated with. Let them do whatever they, somehow we have to stop it. In democratic practice, I think we need to be in dialogue with all the stakeholders. And one thing last, which I would like to say, I would again, like Professor Mikio Osi mentioned about, I'm anti-US. I think let's, you know, US is a country, is a state, is a people, is having different ideology. It has many practices, good and bad. So if we make a blank statement, I hate Korea, I hate Japan, or I don't like Russia, I don't like China, it would be, you can say, it's not going to serve our purpose. I think there are good people in Korea, there are bad people in Korea. So there is a good policy, there are many good policies of America. So my point is that let's be engaged, and rather than branding, I think we like them, dislike them at the same time. Let's do that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good point. No? I think especially in this forum, we have to recognize that. Um, again, what should be shared is our common humanity. You know, I really appreciate the perspective of one of the four crew member who traveled to the farthest point out around the moon. You know, he said he realized that the reason he survives is because of the spaceship he's on. But he says everybody here, we're all aboard spaceship Earth, and that we live in such a, you know, it's a fragile ship, and that we're all members of the crew, it, and that we have to be responsible for one another's safety, because unlike a simple team that you gather together, a crew means we have to be willing to sacrifice for one another, because the crew member, the fate of one crew member is the fate of the entire crew. So again, this is a fragile spaceship Earth we all belong to. We have to learn how to respect all our fellow human beings. I mean, we have yet to encounter aliens from outer space, but even among ourselves, we have to achieve that level of common humanity, understanding, peace, and, you know, deeper understanding of one another. Thank you, Sandip, for such a, you know, thought-provoking discussion and awareness of what's going on with our idea of what a democracy need to be, or even authoritarian leaders or systems. They've had their advantages as much as disadvantages, and you can't question when you have millions of people moving out of poverty. And I think that's where we need to realize that in the age of AI and all of this advanced technology, we should be enjoying the highest quality of life for human beings in this spaceship Earth, and we're still far from it. So how to achieve that? I think you know, there's so many medical marvels now that can extend our human lives, but you know, you want to extend the quality of life. Otherwise, you're just extending our human suffering. No. So anyway, my thoughts. Anybody else who want to share their thoughts? I'd like to hear your voice. Otherwise, I turn this back to Sungho, our convener.
Okay,
Sorry,
thank you.
can I just say something
Okay,
before you end?
briefly.
Because
Yes.
you asked if we want to say something, yeah. I think this is, well, I hope this is a phase that we are going through. You know, as in life, we go through good times, we go through bad times, and you know, unfortunately, this is the phase that we are going through, and we are, you know, being presented with this particular challenge in history. You know, and then in the future, you know, our children will ask us, so you went through that period. You know, you went through COVID, and then you went through the period now, you know, with global issues and all those things. What did you do at that time? You know, so we will have to answer, you know, to our children and grandchildren, what have we done, you know, to improve things, to make sure that the challenges that we are facing, you know, that we can overcome them. You know, so I think we should do whatever we feel we should do in the best way that we do. You know, so you think for yourself, feel, you know, how best you can contribute, you know, so that this particular phase of history, you know, shall not be repeated again for our children and grandchildren in the future. And thank you again, Sandip, for your presentation.
Okay, Constantine, you raise your hand, please. Unmute. Constantina, kindly unmute. You're still unmute.
Is it okay now?
Yes.
Okay. I wrote because I thought we didn't have any time. But I want to say that it's really, we heard many interesting things, and from Mr. Mishra and the other commentators. And I insist that the problem of education, not as something that we are sure how we not education has no certainties today. It's not sure what education means today. It's not something solved. Okay, we have education, we'll solve all the problems. Education reflects all this stuff we talked about. And education, it's going to be a key if we know how to do and where to go. Because otherwise, education, there are many styles of education. But if we talk about an education passionate with democracy, that's for me the key for many things. But I want to come back to Mr. Kumar excuse me, Askandar
Zam.
Mr. Zam. There is that problem Mr. Mishra also posed about equality and liberty, because if people are starving, it's very difficult to have democracy. And the solution is not giving only food, because soon food is going to be for people who agree with the system. Otherwise, there's no food. I mean, this is a problem. This is an essential problem today. Freedom and equality of chances and of standards of living, because we can't have poverty. That's for sure. We can't have poverty, but we can't live without expressing ourselves, without procedures of participations. Otherwise, life is very difficult. But this is something something people with knowledge have to elaborate thought, deep thought. I don't see that in this moment. Coming back, as you say, backsliding, coming back to theoreticians that elaborate thought about the financial system and the political system. We need that from this point of view of the 21st century. We need, again, theories. We need people to think about. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Konstantina from Greece. Okay, history teacher.
Greece.
Okay. Okay, Greece. I joined her, class online. Okay, yeah, right. And also
Yes.
Myoin. Okay.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Kant.
Right. Okay, from the United States. Okay, thank you for joining. Okay, in the middle of the night, maybe your time or the morning. Okay. Okay, thank you for your participation. And today, presenter, speaker, Dr. Sandip Mishra, thank you very much for your presentation. And today's moderator, okay, Raymond, thank you very much. And for, the as a token of our appreciation, my committee prepare like a certificate of recognition, okay, to the presenter. Our just briefly, read it. Okay, is it okay? Okay. This certificate is proudly presented to Dr. Sandip Kumar Mishra, professor at the Center for East Asian Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University in India, in recognition of his valuable contribution as a speaker at the 138th Global Thursday Forum for his presentation entitled Democratic Backsliding in East Asia and Regional Peace, delivered on 16th April 2026. The Global Thursday Forum is hosted by the History NGO Forum for Peace in East Asia, an international non-governmental organization based in Seoul, Republic of Korea, in collaboration with the Thursday Forum Steering Committee, comprising members from 10 countries. On behalf of the History NGO Forum for Peace in East Asia and the Thursday Forum Steering Committee, Sung-ho Kang. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll send it to today's presenter. And before end our this session, I'd like to announce our next program. May, Korea now in the still the middle of the spring, May 21st, the Thursday. The title is we chose the Europe Italian unification revisited. Garibaldi, nationalism, and the making of modern Italy. Okay, tentatively Italy, right? Constantine, you are from Europe, right? And the speaker is Mr. Paolo Kekoli. His name. Okay, he's historian and Euroclio ambassador. Euroclio, our partner, okay, in Europe, and I'm personally interested in the Italy history, okay, Italian history, modern, ancient, and old history, the unification, okay, is comparatively recently in this is their unification. So I hope if you are interested in this topic, please join us in our May, okay, Global Thursday Forum. And it's time to say bye-bye, okay, everybody, okay, goodbye, and hope to see you, okay, next
Thank you.
time.
Bye.
See you
Take
next
good
month.
care, take good care. Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye, everybody, okay. Take good care.